Hey JC fam, John Cox Master Cartoonist here again. We're still doing Johnny Costa fan art pick overviews this month in honor of his birthday on the 17th. And we're going to talk a little more about the fan art of him with his bandmates. I figured I owe you guys a proper in-depth pick overview of some of those specific pictures of him with his band that we talked just a little bit about in that other video, that longer 9 minute long video. Because I sort of rambled on and we kind of glossed over a few important details in that video. It's kind of hard to do those kinds of videos when you're trying to keep the video short and basic, but I need to explain to you guys the complicated history of Johnny Costa's music on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because not a lot of people really know that kind of information. And I wanted to start with a proper pick overview of this circa 80s shot of the Johnny Costa trio with Carl McVicker on bass. Because in that video, that other video I did, we kind of glossed over a crucially important detail that I don't even think I mentioned in the other video. And that is, Carl McVicker had actually been performing with Johnny Costa since the 60s? So way before Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood even existed. And I know that sounds very confusing because he did not perform on every episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood until about 1979 when the series resumed production after that short hiatus between the pre-79 episodes and the modern weeks that most Mr. Rogers and Johnny Costa fans my age and younger grew up with. Why am I having so much trouble hitting that pause button? Anyways, so Carl McVicker did perform with Costa on and off in the show's early years. He did indeed make a few pre-79 episode contributions. He was part of the circus band in episode 1335, an episode from the time that I'm pretty sure Michael Taylor was performing on every episode otherwise. He was the bassist for the Royal Brass Button Band in episode 1064 and the bass violinist for the string quartet in episode 1134. So, Carl McVicker was on a few pre-79 Mr. Rogers installments, but he wasn't the full-time bassist until about 1979. He performed with Costa on the Christmas Time special from 1977 and the Springtime special from 1978. And then, of course, he performed on every episode from the show's second run, 1979 to 2001. Even after John Costa's death in 1996, he and Bob Rossforn continued to perform with Michael Morrix, the show's new musical director. But now we got the musical history more or less out of the way, let's talk about the actual picture, because this is a pick overview after all. There's not really much to say about this picture. It's just Johnny Costa and his trio performing in the studio, as you would expect. We, of course, have Costa on his keyboard instruments. That's the synthesizer on top of the piano, and that's the Celesta behind the bass violin. Carl McVicker on the bass violin, and Bob Rossforn on the drums. Something unique I did with this picture that I didn't do on the other two is I actually wrote the names of the musicians and the musical instruments with the pen cap scraping or scissor blade scraping. On the other ones, I just physically wrote their names, but on this one, I scraped their names. Of course, I say pen cap scraping. I mostly use the scissor blades, only because I'm an adult and I'm very careful with the scissor blades. You never, ever misuse scissors when you're under 18. As a matter of fact, it's called the pen cap scraping because you use a recycled pen cap. You're supposed to use a recycled pen cap when you do that scraping technique on your drawings. But if you're very careful, like me, you can theoretically use the sharp end of the scissor blades. I don't normally use the pen cap only because it's made of plastic and it's a little flimsier. So I find the scissor blades just a little stronger because they're made of metal. But you don't ever misuse the scissors when you're a lot younger. But anyways, that's it for this interesting picture of Johnny Costa's trio. We'll talk a little more in depth about the ones that have Ron Feudally on bass and Michael Taylor on bass in separate videos. And of course, if you haven't checked out that 9-minute video, that 9-minute long video already, feel free to. It was very hard to make, but I managed to. And I drew this picture sometime back in late November or early December 2022. So, thanks for watching.